On the plantation, Kingsley Plantation. I see my first structure. Let's see what we got. These are actual slave quarters.
Bichi, Mabani, Tati, Abo, Cabo, Misamo, Motero, Tamifia, Anobia. Children born at the Kingsley plantation were also given African names, such as the boy named Baju and another boy named Matoto, the Swahili word for child.
So right now, we are in the actual slave quarters on the Kingsley Plantation. This is where a family would live, and the family would consist of maybe 3 or more children if they wasn't sold off by the plantation master. Because it would be the father, the mother, and all their children.
But where's their bathroom?
They didn't have a bathroom.
Where's their kitchen?
They didn't have a kitchen, but I did research and say they used to cook on the outside. And there was even some sacrifices made to their religious gods on the outside, and they found it. The archaeologists found it. But after a hard day's labor, working sun up to sundown on the plantation, can you imagine coming in here to one room, not even 100 square feet, and this was it. There's no Xbox, no 360, no internet, no nothing. Just you and your family. What do you think about it?
It's humbling to know that they had to come into this tiny area, no privacy, especially for the woman. I can only imagine how it could have felt having to raise your children here, having to do things that we normally do as women where we need our privacy, having to have your man and your children come home from working in the field alongside you.
And not only did they come home from the field happy, but over there was the master's house back behind us. So if a slave did get whipped, or the person that was enslaved got whipped, he would also come back here, and the black woman would nurture him and heal his bruises and put balm on him and talk to him and sing. And it's made out of what's called tabby, and it's very different standing in here. I feel like a different kind of energy.
Yeah, the energy is very different. You feel it from within. It's hard to describe what you feel.
I don't know if it's suffering or pain. Let's go check out another one. We're going to go to another one. This is an older one that has it. This one deteriorated more. So you get a better view of how big it was. You can see the foundations. It's not big at all. This is it. He had 32 on his Kingsley plantation. It was 32 slave houses shaped in a half of a spear to represent something similar to how the tribes would house people in Africa. Had a semi-spear with the plantation master's house in the middle representing the king. Where did he get that influence? Where did he get that knowledge? The owner of this plantation married a black woman that he purchased. He impregnated her, then he married her. And she was influential in the decisions made on this plantation we're on now. So we're going to continue the tour. We're going to explore it. We have a lot more houses, slave houses we're going to walk past. And it's hard for me to even say the people that were enslaved because my tongue is trained to call our ancestors slaves. But from this day forth, no more would I call them slaves. I will call them either my ancestors or my ancestors who were enslaved. So we're going to see the houses of the people that were enslaved and just experience it there had to be joyous times. There had to be a lot of suffering, a lot of pain, a lot of what do we call the African American woman would probably humble the African American man in these exact spots because the African American man by nature would want to rebel. But she did a humbling process to teach him that if he wanted to stay together with the family, he couldn't grab his knife or machete and run up there and do what he thought about doing. So I'm gonna experience this with my family, with my loved one, with my baby, and we're gonna continue on this journey. Peace. So this is the actual quarters. One room. The adults and children were living here together. Everybody was living in one place. It used to be 32 quarters here. So as we walked, we was at those ones, and way down through the woods, we've seen some other huts.
Tida, Abo, Cabo, Misomia, Motorio, Tamafia.
This was the overseer's house. This is where the overseer slept. If you notice, it's a little bigger than the other one, square footage wise. This was the privileged guy that used to have to turn against his own people, and the overseer on this plantation was of African descent. And he had the first house when they came in the gate, so we're now standing inside of it. First thing I noticed walking in is it's bigger. They call that.
You already messing with psychological man.
They call that
I'm better than you.
mandatory manumission. That's when they would reward you for either turning in your own people, stopping the rebellion, saving a white person, or participating in anything to down your own people. That's mandatory manumission. That's a term for it. So whoever stayed in this particular property received the direct benefits from that system, where you had to turn against your people and support the agenda of the people that were holding you captive.
Working on your mental, psychological. Working on this. The spell, making you think you better, you got this privilege and this power and this position. And what's going on today?
This one's been restored, and this is it. Going to Kingsley Plantation.
It was working.
I'm fine. We came from Virginia to see this, to drive down through the Kingsley Plantation. I read a lot on it.
Okay.
I did a lot of research. Say it was 32 slave quarters
Right.
in a semicircle with I guess the big house would be up that way, correct?
Yeah, so the planter's house is basically just the end of the driveway on the other side of the parking lot. So yeah.
And this was the overseer's house?
Yes, there were 4 of those. So there would have been this one, the one opposite that, and then the ones at the very end of the arc as well.
Oh, that's what she was telling. She was right, babe. So they had I guess it was strategically placed so that they could monitor everything that was going on inside the property. Any nice tidbits or something, any facts that I may not have stumbled across on the internet? You might want to share with me?
Let's see. So did you read it about the material these are made out of?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you learn about the process yet?
Yeah, they say they crush the clamshells up.
Yeah.
And then put them in a little footing, a small footing, and dump some kind of mixture of sand or something inside of it.
Yeah, sand and water. So it's basically ground up oyster shells mixed up with sand and water, which creates this like paste. And so that is a pourable substance, basically. And so you can pour it into bricks, molds. So a lot of the buildings out there have tabby bricks, basically. These are different though. So what has been done here is that this tabby has had whole oyster shells added into this mix. And so what happened then is that there was basically a mold that was built out of wood.
When they built the
Sections, yeah, and then they poured that substance into that mold, and that is how these were made. And so a lot of the holes you see in these slave cabins is a result of that original molding that was holding the structure together.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
okay.
That's what they
Okay.
used to hold the wood up.
Right. So there were beams basically that were keeping it all aligned while it
Dried up. And they lasted. Why are some of them? Stay on this side of it because it's going to be the sun going to have these blocks. Why are some of them more dilapidated than the others?
Yeah, so
Like way back there, it's two odd ones way back in the back.
yeah, so a lot of the ones on that side are not doing as well as the ones on this side. And so kind of what happens is the plantation has many different owners, and the enslaved population here went from about 120 individuals during Zephaniah Kingsley's time, and from that time it kind of starts to shrink. And so a lot of the outer ones on that side were not being used anymore. And so they're kind of dilapidated for a long time. Then John Rollins moves in here and he needs building materials, and so then he just takes the building materials from a lot of those ones that
Like
are
a
not doing so
junkyard.
well.
That's what they do, a junkyard. Take
Right,
stuff
so
from
it's going to build like a boat dock and some other things, so it's just moving the materials basically.
And I also read that he purchased the lady, I think her name was Anna or something.
Yeah.
Mama Anna's house. And
Yeah,
so is it open? They say she lived over top of the kitchen. Is that open for us to go into? Or
so you can't get upstairs, but you can get down on the bottom, so half of it is the kitchen, the other part was part of her quarters basically. And so, yeah, Zephaniah purchases Anna, which her original name was Anta Majinjai J.
say she was an actual princess or something?
Yeah.
Where she came from?
Yeah, so she's a Wolof princess basically.
Okay.
And so she's believed she was captured in a raid in Africa. She was taken out to the coast, and that is where she was put into the slave trade. And so in 1806, Zephaniah Kingsley purchases her at an auction in Cuba, brings her back here. 5 years later, he emancipates her, so he frees her and the 3 children they have at that point. And then Anna is basically put in charge in a number of the plantations that he owns. And so by the time they move here, they are already married under the common law. And so Zephaniah moves into the main house, Anna moves into the kitchen house. So we don't know exactly why that happened that way. We don't know why they live separately. There's potential for a lot of different reasons.
I read 2 theories that say it was a common practice and one was polygamy. One theory said it was a common practice back then for them to live separate. One was saying it could be possibly polygamous relationships where they had other wives. But
Yeah, so you're
I
kind
had
of
a long
going where,
ride, so I've
I see that. So you're kind of going where I was going with that. So if you look at Anna's background from where she's from, husbands and wives lived in separate accommodations. So it is potentially the influence of Anna on the plantation. More than that, where Anna was from was also common for men to have multiple wives. And so Zephaniah did have 2, debated to be 4 wives. So potentially 2 things that we can see the influence of Anna on the plantation. But can't confirm that in any way, but it's interesting to consider.
yeah, and you got any questions, babe?
No, you covered it all.
I read more and they said that when they abandoned it during the Civil War and went to Haiti, and then she came back and tried to, after he passed away on a trip to New York,
Yeah.
he was buried along the way, she came back and had to go have legal proceedings with the family, his brothers and sisters, because they were saying that as a colored person, she didn't have the rights to inherit the land and own property and all that stuff.
Yeah, so you've got a couple different parts of the story coming together
Clanfield,
here. Yeah,
That's
so,
how my mind works.
Okay.
I'm in the matrix.
all right, so what happens is Zephaniah Kingsley is living here when this is Spanish Florida, and he's also living here when this becomes United States territory. And so when that happens, a lot of the slave codes change and race relations really start to change. So what happens that's really a big deal for the Kingsleys is that there is a law that says if you're a free black, you cannot inherit. So that means that Zephaniah's children cannot inherit anything that he owns. And so that's a big problem for him. And so what he decides to do is move the family out to Haiti. And so in the process of moving out to Haiti, he dies. Okay, his eldest son dies soon after him. And so that kind of leaves Anna as being one of the main inheritors of the will. And so what happens is that Kingsley's sister decides to take that will to court because of that law that says it was illegal for free blacks to inherit when this is United States. And so she takes it to court, and so Anna decides to come back here to Florida, and she defends the will at court.
And the court held up the Spanish treaty that we had.
Yes, exactly. So Anna wins in court, and that's because she's being considered a Spanish citizen, not free black, and so that's why she wins. And because of that treaty says that if you were a Spanish citizen living in Florida when it is the United States, that she had some of the rights that she had when this was Spanish territory. So that's why she wins.
So I got another question now, because I do a
Yeah.
lot of research, a lot of studying.
Yeah, I see that. You know lots of the stuff. It's cool.
Well, I do a laser, I do a target focus.
Okay.
But I haven't seen anything on the treatment of the people that was held captive here. My opinion from what I read was that his treatment couldn't have been as horrendous as other masters' treatment because it's not documented like some of them that I've seen.
Okay.
And they say that on one of these structures they actually had a back patio built on, which shows
Yeah.
his trust level to their freedom, because other masters wouldn't allow them to build anything. And second of all, would have made him do it in the front so he could always see what's going on.
Right. So there's a couple different things coming into play here. So first off, these were built when this was a Spanish territory. And so Spanish slavery is different to the United States territory slavery. And so a big part of that would be kind of the distance that these slave cabins are from the main house. Okay, so if you're thinking of like the chattel system of slavery, which would be more common to the north of here in the United States, those cabins would have had overseers and they would have been highly monitored. That is not necessarily the case when this is a Spanish territory. Okay, so that's part of it. But if you kind of look at what Kingsley does in some of the writings, he's a very complex individual in history. So he, in his will, writes about how he wants all of the enslaved individuals to be sold as family units so that they're not separated.
Okay.
Okay, he also says that anyone that is able to purchase freedom
Allowed him to purchase.
should be allowed to do that after he's died, okay? But you could also see something interesting on the other side, where when this first becomes United States territory, he starts to put out a lot of writings as to why he thinks that the Spanish system of slavery should be what is used in Florida, not the British system. And a big part of that is that he says that slavery is very integral to the economy. It is necessary, is basically what he's saying. And that a big part of having an enslaved population is allowing them certain freedoms so they do not rebel, basically.
So he even gave them a day a month to collect. They gave them one day to plant and another day to harvest, correct?
I'm not entirely sure about that. I've not seen that.
I was Googling it.
Okay.
It came, everything that I read on Google isn't correct, but he was saying that the difference from his style of mastering was that he actually allowed them one day to plant seeds and then another day to harvest their crops and all that.
So that might be coming from the task system, which is the slave system that was used on this plantation here. And so the chattel system is what it was used in the United States, basically. The task system is different in that enslaved individuals would be assigned a specific task, and when that task was done, they had a period of free time.
Yeah.
And so they could grow slave gardens, which is actually what this area right here would have been the slave gardens and things like that. They could have also sold their skills at market or something like that.
Yeah, and he used to train here too. Now you're talking about market. Say he would train some of the slaves to earn 50% more of the value at the slave market versus the untrained one that wasn't trained on this plantation.
Yeah, I believe I've heard that, but I don't have specifics.
I can remember stuff when I read it for a while. Let me ask you one more
good.
question. I'm not
Yeah,
gonna
go
hold
for
it
it.
long. Where were they buried at? Where's the burial grounds here?
So I don't have any specifics, and I can't really give any specifics about where they are specifically, but it is kind of in this area. So you see this large tree behind you here?
Yes, huge.
The really big one? So that is a witness tree, so that means it was here when this was a plantation. So it is supposedly in this area around that witness tree.
We've seen a lot of birds flying. All right. Well, thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it.
welcome.
What's your name? Shelly?
Shelly.
Shelly Albee. I appreciate your
Of course.
information. Appreciate you. And I'm gonna I'll give you one of my cards because I go around and collect facts and put little YouTube snippets together.
Okay.
So I'm gonna give you a card to put on YouTube. I really do appreciate your knowledge.
Of course.
We're on the Kingsley Plantation in Jacksonville, Florida. I got my lovely fiance Keita with me. We're gonna go on a tour and view the slave quarters, or not the slave quarters, I'm gonna change my terminology. We're gonna view the quarters of the people that were enslaved, because we're not gonna call them slaves no more. It's time to wake up and stay woke. First chapter, staying woke, is to use the right vocabulary. So now we're gonna view the quarters. Now we're actually entering the big house area of the plantation. That's where it all went down. The good, the bad, and mostly ugly. But humans was held for the economic value, not treated humane.
Yo,
What's up, babe?
I got a filter on Snapchat that says knowledge is power.
Fort George Island, Kingsley Plantation. This is where we were at, where we came in. We walked there, seen the huts here. They're the two that I shot that was different from the other. Now I'm standing there, of course, on a journey, getting the knowledge, the many faces of those enslaved. Plantation era pictures. We're going in the kitchen. This is our first entrance. We didn't pre-run here to know anything. First time we stepped in. I don't know what that is.
A double crank hand gym.
The what? Oh, removing seeds from fiber cotton. It was difficult, so they made a double crank hand gym.
Women as managers. Anna Kingsley lived above the kitchen and managed domestic matters. This allowed her to keep a close eye on the kitchen and the house. Anna Kingsley, like other planters' wives, had daily responsibilities. Women inspected the health of the workers and directed the laborers and slaves. Anna managed her own properties as well as Kingsley while he was away.
What we got right here, baby? Can you read this one?
Tabby, a precious survivor. In this room, the walls and floor are made of tabby and oyster shell concrete. Tabby was fire resistant and durable. It was ideal for a heavily used area like the kitchen. Tabby holds temperature well. Although warm on cold, damp winter days, this room was hot in the summer with the cooking fire blazing all day. Frequent walking on the tabby will wear down this unique floor, which is nearly 200 years old.
Daily responsibilities. Like apparently she was really young.
Look, man. So who else is this? The slave master?
Well, the kitchen was built, and then they built Anna's quarters over top of the kitchen. So this says Anna's parlor. This must be the area she used to come down into.
Wow. Look at this.
That don't look interesting at all. I said, this doesn't look interesting at all. What we have here is a shackle system that was used as a form of punishment. It said when a slave did anything, he was not punished immediately, but kept until there was enough to be punished. And we have a shackle system where they were shackled together, as you see in this picture, and just sitting there waiting. So you think what you're going through rough today, you think what you're going through is a cause for anxiety, you think what you're going through is a cause for depression or a cause to give up or a suicidal thought. It's not. These people went through much more than what we're going through. I know that whatever you're going through is big to you and big in your situation, but it's someone that has it worse, it's someone that had it worse, and it's someone who shed blood and died for the rights and liberties that you have today. So enjoy your freedom, be blessed, let those who you love know that you love them, and let those who you care for know that you care for them. And don't give up on yourself. Develop a pattern of following knowledge of self, because when you know where you've been and what you've been through, it's much simpler to teach you where you gotta go. Peace.
I didn't think so. No, that's good. Hey, this ain't no accident when we come.
On the walkway from the kitchen to the big house that was covered up in later years when they decided to put this top on it. Now we're about to experience the actual Kingsley Plantation house. It's not open for tours right now due to construction, but we can peek through the windows. It says don't touch because it's all historic stuff. Historic glass.
You can walk back there too to the water.
So this is the actual quarters. One room. The adults and children were living here together. Everybody living in one place. It used to be 36 or 32 quarters. All they didn't even have a fire inside of the building. They had the fireplace was outside. They used to have to step outside